Welcome on into the podcast. I'm Brett,
I'm Dorian.
and we have our Thursday throwback Return of the Jedi edition. Uh,
Yeah,
I
we're back to
mean,
the original trilogy.
we're done with the OG trilogy now. We've gone through the original trilogy. For those of you who are just tuning in, I encourage you, if you haven't already, go back and listen to our other reviews of these movies. We watched them in a specific order. We watched 4, 5, then we did the prequels 1, 2, 3, and now we're in 6. So, yeah, and I think it did change a couple of things for me at least, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But let's talk about our first times, kind of watching this movie. What do we remember? What do we think as kids? What did you think, Dorian?
So I think the first time I watched this movie, I think I got it as part of a VHS box set for Christmas. And I remember liking this movie a lot. Like this was my favorite Star Wars movie out of the original trilogy when I was a kid. I would come home from first grade every day and just watch it. Like I didn't even care. I mean,
That's
I,
funny.
I don't know. It was just like something about it. I mean, it might have been the Ewoks. It might have been just the fact that Luke got to be cool in this movie that I think just really appealed to me as a kid.
Yeah, I think I was probably around the same age when I first saw this. We had the 3 movie box set, and yeah, I don't exactly remember. I had to have been young. I don't exactly remember my age. I was probably like 6 or 7, I'm guessing. And this was my favorite of the original trilogy as a kid.
Yeah,
And I think mainly because Luke gets to be a baller, but the Ewoks I thought were cool.
yeah,
And that was until this was probably my favorite Star Wars movie until the Phantom Menace came out when I was little. I loved the Phantom Menace. Then I was all about pod racing.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
that movie was really easy to identify with because obviously Anakin was my age, and
Right.
but with all that said, I think this is I have a lot of fond memories surrounding this movie. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I think, kind of speaking to the Phantom Menace thing, I mean, I think probably the reason why you and I really like Phantom Menace as a kid, just because it's a movie that appeals primarily to kids. And
Yeah,
then
totally,
I,
totally.
I think, I think out of the original trilogy, this movie in particular is the one that appeals the most to kids. I think for the most part
Oh,
here,
big
just
time.
because, yeah, you got more humor, you got the Ewoks, you got all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are right. So let's take a look at some of the characters, I guess. Who do you want to start with?
Oh, well, let's start with Luke. I mean, seems like a great place to start.
Cool. All right.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, definitely got some characters that have kind of changed in this movie. I mean, especially, I think Luke is probably the one that has changed the most in between
Yeah.
movies here.
Yeah. Big
I
time.
mean, yeah, I mean, he actually gets to be a baller in this one. I mean, he's not having like somebody having to save him, or he's needing somebody to really like back him up per se, like like how he has been like in the previous 2 movies. He actually has a lot more agency in this movie. He actually gets to affect the story a lot more. He gets to make the big decisions and all that stuff.
Yeah. Totally. And I think Luke's more confident, not as whiny.
Yep.
He uses the Force a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Yeah,
He has a
he
green
does.
lightsaber now,
Yep, he sure does.
and he's wearing all black,
Yeah,
like his
which
daddy.
I'm pretty much, yeah. I mean, well, he was really channeling his dad, like when he's walking into Jabba's palace. But we'll get to that a little bit later here.
Yeah. All right. Who do you want next?
Well, let's talk about Leia, because I mean, this is kind of a big movie for her in a certain sense here. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Twin
mean,
sister from the same mister.
pretty much, yeah. And no, I mean, basically, um, in this movie, it is revealed that she is Luke's sister, and that's the first time that we really got any like hint of that actually being you know a thing
Yeah.
in
Yep.
this movie. And so, and in all honesty, I don't really feel like at least on this watch, I don't feel like her being Luke's sister really does a whole lot for the story. I mean, I felt like you could have just said, "Oh yeah, she's force sensitive," and you probably would have been kind of the same, just because her relationship with like knowing that Darth Vader is her father, that doesn't really change anything. It just really just like makes it a little bit more awkward between like Luke, Han, and Leia, where like Han thinks Leia is, skipping out on him for Luke, basically.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that changes that relationship dynamic where Han doesn't have to feel like he's competing.
Yeah.
But to me, yeah, looking back on it, it felt like it was kind of a more forced thing that George ended up putting into that movie because,
Oh,
uh,
absolutely. Yeah.
originally it wasn't going to be Leia; it was going to be someone else, and
Right.
so, yeah, I don't really get it. Like for Leia herself, she had to wear some uncomfortable stuff. She had to wear that
Oh yeah.
bronze bikini or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, the metal bikini and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she always knew. She said she's like when Luke's talking to her, he's like, "Hey, do you remember your mother?" Which there's a whole consistency issue with that conversation.
Well, yeah, I mean
Um,
that. I mean, we'll get into that a little bit later. I mean, but essentially, I mean, this is why I think prequels 9 times out of 10 are kind of garbage, just because they typically will like contradict or undercut like what you originally had penned.
sure, yeah, and so yeah, she's always known she's related to Luke somehow through the Force. Like she
Yeah,
just could feel it, and I'm like, "And you kissed him twice?" Question
yeah.
mark.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously not great,
Yeah,
but at the same time, I mean, I kind of interpret that as like she's always had this feeling of like maybe of Luke of familiarity, just something that she couldn't quite like put her finger on or
yeah,
explain.
could have been, and that kind
You
of
know,
cemented it.
yeah, I think it's like just I don't know. It's like what if you have like a gut feeling or a vibe about something that but you have no idea why you have it until like say for example you learn something that kind of like validates your gut vibe's opinion or
Yeah,
your gut feelings opinion, and then yeah.
it was just weird that she's like, "I've always known that," and then she doesn't say anything about that realization of Vader actually being her dad. Like, there's no
No,
conversation of that.
no, not at all here, which I felt like that was a little bit of a missed opportunity, just because it's like, okay, so really like the thing is you're talking about like Vader, in that same conversation you're talking about Vader being Luke's dad, and then all of a sudden uh Luke says Leia like, "Hey, we're related, so by default, Vader's your dad too." And she doesn't say anything about that.
Nah, she's like, "Meh, that's fine."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, which is a whole nother thing because he killed her, you know, parents that raised her
Oh
because
yeah.
they
Well,
were on Alderaan.
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, just kind of weird. I don't know. Like for me, Leia doesn't do a whole lot in this movie. She just hangs out with teddy bears. So
For the most part,
she
yeah.
has
I
some
mean,
cool scenes, like the scene where she gets shot. That was a
uh,
cool scene.
yeah.
No, but like yeah, where she gets shot and then like she has that scene where she like has a gun and shoots both of them. Like she has some cool action scenes. She's on the speeder
Yeah.
bikes.
Yeah,
Um,
she chokes out Jabba the Hutt.
she does choke. That's a great scene. That's an
Yeah.
amazing scene.
Yeah, and then also she also basically is like disguising herself as a bounty hunter, and threatening to blow up the place unless she gets the money
That
for Chewie and all that at the
thermal
beginning of the movie.
detonator. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's
Yep.
pretty cool.
Yeah, but yeah, other than that, I mean, Leia, I felt like in this movie, her role is definitely played down for the most part. I think just mostly to make room for essentially like Vader and Luke's dynamic.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, let's talk about Han, or is it
Yeah, or
Han?
is it
Han?
Han?
Han or
Yeah.
Han? I'm not. I still don't know. After watching all these movies, I'm like,
I
and
mean,
all these years of hearing his name, and I'm still like, I don't know. It could be either.
well, I mean, I'm definitely in the Han camp, seeing how
I'm also
that's just how he introduces himself in the first movie here. So I mean, you kind of have to go with it.
Lando. I don't know if Billy D. Williams could literally not say Han
Han.
because he
Yeah.
calls him Han all the
Yeah.
time. Han
I don't know.
Solo.
maybe it's like a Bestman accent thing here,
Maybe.
kind of like how in some people from some countries can't say like certain letters or whatever, make certain sounds here, so they,
Right.
yeah, I
Yeah, I
don't
don't
know.
know. Yep. But yeah, so Han, I feel like is a little bit more mature in this movie.
Hmm.
He's not necessarily running from what's going on. Um, and
Oh
something
no,
I
he's front and center in this movie
yeah,
here. He's like
super
all
front and
in.
center. He's definitely more of a hero in this movie than the anti-hero or the reluctant hero.
Yeah,
Um, and he does not fly the Falcon at all in this movie.
which I feel like is sacrilegious.
Oh yeah, I mean, and he even said in the movie, he's like, I don't think I'll see her, again, or at least for I can't remember the exact quote, but he's like, I
Yeah,
got a
but
feeling I won't see her again, or something like that. And
exactly, yeah. I mean, and that's
yeah,
another thing about like kind of his growth. Like if we rewind this, or like if like this was the Han from like say like one movie ago or two movies ago, I felt like he would say, "Yeah, no, I'm not letting you fly the Falcon, even if it is for a good cause." Here,
totally,
like yeah, but
and to its old
no,
owner.
exactly, and no, I mean there is like no hint of his like former selfishness in this movie at all, which I kind of feel like, I mean, I get it. He doesn't like pretty much all of his reasoning for like being selfish. In like the previous movies has pretty much gone away with like Jabba getting killed and all that, and like basically him,
Being a free
basically
man.
being a free man, and also just kind of being kind of cathartic with him, like actually like bringing down Jabba, like
Yeah,
being the guy that's kind of put him in this hard position basically, but he really does not get a lot of agency in this movie. He really is like just kind of going along for the ride for the most part.
yeah. I mean, I think what like drew me to the character of Han was just like he was that reluctant hero. He like I don't know. I just feel like something's missing from his character in this movie.
No, it most certainly is. I mean, I think that's what is like, great about Han is like he is the original reluctant hero. He is the original kind of like every man who wants to do something good, but he has like, some baggage or some roadblocks that is preventing him from doing it. So he just kind of decides to ignore like, a moral calling or like, you know, a call to do the right thing here. And instead he just kind of goes about things in a self-interest kind of way.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, this is my least favorite movie for him.
Yeah.
My
No,
most favorite for Luke. And I'm kind of indifferent about Leia, I guess, for the big three.
yeah, no, I definitely think Force Awakens really did capture Han like kind of more as uh as we know him more in terms of like just being the scoundrel, kind of being more reluctant and all that stuff here. I think they did a better job in Force Awakens than this movie did.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the man of the hour, Vader.
Vader. So a lot more depth in this movie than any other movie in the original trilogy.
Yeah, I think you see kind of the continuation of his fight in Cloud City.
Hmm.
He, yeah, that's I think my best word would be conflicted. He's a conflicted character in this movie,
Yeah.
and it's the most humanized they make Vader because he starts using his machine basically,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
and in this movie he's just like doesn't I don't think he knows what to do. Like I think he for the first time since he left the Jedi Order,
Hmm.
he's like I'm not saying
Yeah.
he hasn't felt feelings before, like being conflicted at all, but now he's legitimately like like the turmoil is real, and he like the old Anakin is starting to resurface.
Right, exactly. Well, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting you mentioned Cloud City because, like, basically, like in Cloud City, pretty much like that entire fight or like that entire encounter, Vader has always had the upper hand, and like Luke has been like completely was like unprepared for anything. The fight, the fact that his like the reveal of like Vader being his father, like he was completely unprepared and everything, and so Vader had the upper hand in that respect. But now, like when you first see, Luke, talk to Vader in that one scene where they're on Endor together and Luke's in handcuffs and whatnot. You know, you have like Luke who's like a lot more prepared and like he actually gets the upper hand on Vader, I think, in pretty much this whole movie here, just because
Yeah.
he's more prepared, he's accepted the truth, and now it's Vader that has to be on the defensive on, okay, how do I do this now? Like, do I like, you know, like I got my feelings of confliction, like I want my son to join me, but and all these things here, but I'm sworn to the emperor and I've been doing this for so long that it's like kind of like too late to turn back now type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I that's kind of how I felt just in this like that's where Anakin went. Like I think you see it more in. That's why I kind of liked the prequel. Like watching through the prequels, um, I like the idea of him feeling like he's too far gone. And he's
Yeah.
felt that since Episode 3. And
Hmm.
then literally Luke's main mission isn't even to fight him or the Emperor; it's to like turn his dad.
No,
Um,
it is. Yeah. I mean, even like Obi-Wan and Yoda are saying like, "Hey, the only way you win in this situation is you got to kill your dad."
yeah,
And, and then we'll promote you to Jedi, which I'm like, "Okay, what kind of BS is this? Or you didn't do
yeah,
this for like any other
no.
Jedi in history saying like, "Okay, you got to kill your bad guy dad in order to like, be a Jedi."
Which seems more like a Sith thing to do.
It does,
Hey, go
yes.
kill this guy and you'll be like in Anakin's case in the prequels, like he didn't become Darth Vader until after he killed Mace Windu or helped kill Mace Windu.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I just made that decision to like side with Palpatine and all that. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
well, one last thing I do want to say on Vader is I do
sure.
feel like he does turn a little too quickly in this movie. Which I mean, it's a movie. It's hard to do redemption arcs within like one movie. But that being said, I mean, I don't think it's like like Kylo Ren level like it
No.
was in Rise of Skywalker. I think it was a little bit better played out. You see more turmoil and more conflict in him, and he's just ultimately makes the decision.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, this was even for me. This was like I think a really good turn. Like we've talked about how quick those switches are in the Star Wars universe. I think this was like the longest, most thought out turn for a villain in Star Wars.
Yeah, I would say so. But I mean, yeah,
There's
yeah.
not much to work with there, but
No, there
um,
really isn't. I mean, in terms of like villains that have turned, I mean, it's a pretty short list. I feel like in terms of like the Skywalker movies.
yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it's pretty much Anakin, Kylo Ren. That's
Kylo
those.
Ren, maybe General Hux if you really roll on a stretch.
Yeah, at least the ones in the movies. Those are the only ones that it's like we didn't see Dooku before he turned.
No, we did
Um,
not.
so yeah, I think those were. I'm trying to think. I think that's about it for that. But excuse me. What else? Let's talk about what we liked. What did you
Okay.
like, Dorian?
I mean, I think for me, this movie's biggest strength is nostalgia. I mean, I loved this movie as a kid. Loved the Ewoks. Loved Luke being cool in this one. I
Oh yeah.
like. I even remember like, in school, during this, like yeah, when I was growing up with this movie or watching this movie for the first time. I remember drawing like a picture of the the Sarlacc pit fight
Hmm.
and all that. I mean, I was just really into this movie when I was a kid, and so yeah, the nostalgia factor is
No.
there. Yeah. Um. The main cast does have more on-screen time together, which I do like. I think that was something that we kind of missed out on the last movie, and what I mean by that is like Empire. They're
Hmm.
kind of split up. They're kind of everybody's kind of doing their own thing. And then uh, there's one part in the lightsaber fight where Vader throws his lightsaber at Luke while he's on the catwalk or
Oh
whatever it's
yeah,
called. Yeah, I I like just thinking at that as Vader found a way to deal with the high ground problem from.
dude, that's what I was thinking. Like I was like, "Ooh, Luke has the high ground," and then he throws it. I was like, "Well, he learned his lesson."
He sure did here, man. Um, I mean, the action scenes in this movie pretty good. I mean, the Sarlacc pit, I think is a good action scene. The speeder chase, the dog fights, and specifically about the dog fights, that kamikaze pilot on the rebel side that flies right into the Star Destroyer and destroys the entire Star Destroyer. I mean,
Yeah, because it goes in the control room basically. Like, is that where
yeah,
he hits it?
I
Yeah,
thought it was
he's like,
hilarious and great.
"Ah!" Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
and then
funny.
obviously the lightsaber duel is really good too. Here,
Yeah, it's pretty good.
not as good as like say Empire's duel, but it's still a good duel. It's a very important duel. And then the stuff with the Emperor in terms of like him, Luke, and Vader like all sharing scenes and like him trying to corrupt Luke, Luke trying to bring his dad back from the brink, and just kind of like the dynamic of like the Sith and Jedi. I think is the best parts of this movie here, and
Oh yeah,
I wish they focused a lot more on that. Otherwise, I feel like this movie could have really like kind of gone up like a level in quality if they focused more on that specific aspect.
sure. Um, yeah, no, I think the action at the beginning and end of this movie are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and obviously Jabba's palace, and then you have the fight on the second Death Star, and there's some scenes in between, but those are really the two highlights of this movie for me, as far as action goes. Something I have been paying a close attention to, and didn't really have to say anything in the prequels, but the scoring in this movie
Yeah,
is so good. Like they actually have music for most of the movie. And if you go
yeah,
back and watch the original or 4 and 5, there
yeah.
isn't that much music.
Yeah, no, I think we were talking about like how, yeah, like just like regular scenes that play out, or like just dialogue scenes, like it's there's like no music or no nothing like scoring the background noise or something like that.
Right.
Like in this one, yeah, I mean they definitely did a lot more with that.
Yeah, I think it just adds a lot more to the dialogue, to the overall feel. I like the world building in this movie. We get a lot more different languages, different creatures.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, like I said, adds to the world building. Old geezer Palpatine still pulling the strings behind,
You, it's on that note, it's really surprising to me like how tame Palpatine is in this movie compared to how he was in Revenge of the Sith here.
Yeah,
Like in terms of like just being like an evil old man wizard basically.
yeah, it's definitely different.
Yeah.
I wanted him to say unlimited power though, and just zap Luke, but he didn't.
Yeah. Well, that might be in like the 4K Blu-ray set that George Lucas will muff up somehow.
Could be. Hey, did you
Yeah.
hear the rumor that they're doing the original cuts on Disney Plus?
I heard I've been hearing rumors about that for a while. I
Okay.
mean, I won't buy any stock in that until I actually see it.
Yeah, me either. Anyway, teddy bears are cute and funny.
Yeah.
They,
I mean,
the Ewoks.
exactly,
Um,
yeah.
visual effects stepped it up for this one.
Yeah,
Like,
no. No, a lot more visual effects in this one, and even like one thing I definitely noticed in comparison, like in like the dog fights or like the space battles, a lot more ships on screen here.
yeah, a lot
Because
more.
like you go back and watch A New Hope, there's like very few ships that are like actually like going down to take the Death Star. It's kind of almost laughable, like how little ships are actually going to take down this military base, and even like
Yeah,
how many Tie fighters are on screen. But no, I mean I think yeah, they definitely up the special effects and production value for this one again.
totally. Um, lightsaber battle was good. I don't think it's close to the prequels, but
Yeah,
it is what it is, and so
sure. Yeah.
um, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, that's what we liked.
So kind of getting into what we didn't like then.
That I think that's the way we got to go.
That's the way we got to go. Which, I mean, it's kind of hard to be critical of this movie just because, again, we both grew up with this, and it's kind of, we've just accepted this movie for how it is and haven't really thought about it like, super critically in terms of like, our first impressions or watching it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
All right. So yeah, well, what I didn't like was the pacing wasn't as great as the other
no,
two in this
no,
trilogy.
no, I would agree with that. I feel like, I mean, definitely has a slow start, and it has like a couple of moments like that where you know they'll like kind of have like pit stops like every like, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes or something.
Yeah. And then Luke must not know the Jedi code. Because he speaks in absolutes, which
Yep.
Obi-Wan warned us of that.
Which
Only
again,
Sith deal in absolutes.
correct, yes, but again, this is more of a, I think, a prequel issue than a original trilogy issue, just
Totally.
because,
Yeah, no, it
yeah, I
is.
mean, it's like, again, like, Lucas obviously didn't plan out the whole like Jedi religion
No.
uh, when making this movie, or at least not as specifically as he does in like the prequels here. So
Right.
yeah, I think that whole business, I think that's just more of the failing of the prequel than the original trilogy. But yeah.
I mean, I still blame George Lucas.
Oh, when in doubt, you always blame George Lucas, no matter what.
But yeah, he speaks in he says free us or die to Jabba.
Hmm.
And I put in there, I was like, I thought Sith only deal in absolutes, but and then he
Yeah,
force
which
chokes those guards when he walks into Jabba's palace.
yeah, exactly,
I
yeah.
was like, hold up a second. I had to rewind it because my wife's like, is he allowed to force choke them? And I was like, he force choked them? And she's like, yeah. And I rewound it. I was like, oh my gosh, he is force choking them.
Yeah, no, he absolutely is here. I mean, and here's the thing: I never really thought of that all that much when I was a kid, just because I
No, I
thought
didn't
like,
either.
I'm just like, oh, he's just using the force, no big deal. But coming in with like the knowledge of we have with the prequels and like how that is more associated with like the Sith and the dark side of the force, it's kind of surprising now, like in
Yeah.
terms of like thinking about it in that perspective.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
The little rat thing's disturbing.
Okay, so real quick, do you remember? I think it might be. I think it might be the first episode of The Mandalorian. But do you remember that rat making a cameo in The Mandalorian?
I don't remember it, but I think I remember talking about it.
So there's like one in the cage, and then another one like getting grilled over like a Spitfire and
Oh
all
yeah,
that.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's a good. I like that.
yeah.
But yeah, the club scene, Jabba's palace was a little too sensual for me as a child. It was like,
I mean,
what is going on here?
it is the strip club of the Star Wars universe here. Yeah.
Pretty much. And then they added, I didn't even know this because I don't think I've seen this version of the movie, but why did they add that stupid song in there
George Lucas.
with that female singer and then the bearded
Yeah.
dude? I don't even know. I was like, what in the
Yeah.
heck?
Yeah, I mean, well, that part like I grew up with just because that was um in like the remastered editions that they did back in the 90s and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's one of the things that yeah, people are just kind of cringe every time they see it here.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, no, it's
And
it's not
then
great.
no, it's not great. And then Boba goes out like a chump for being such a loved character.
Which, yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those things where it's like that's yeah, I mean, Boba shouldn't have died like that for like as like the type of like presence and vibe that he was presenting in like in the previous movie and even like in this movie before he actually got taken out like a chump here.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, no, I think that was just kind of like a bad writing situation here, and just George Lucas wanting to have like more comedic moments.
Yeah, fail.
Fail. Yeah.
Fail big time.
But yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. I mean, Boba Fett isn't dead. We all know this here. I mean, like before Disney bought him, they brought him back, and I'm pretty sure he'll probably show up in the Mandalorian at some point in time.
Probably, probably. We'll see.
Yeah.
We still don't know who that caped figure is.
I mean, that's I mean, the going theory it's Boba, but we'll find out.
Hopefully, season 2.
Yeah. Some stuff that I didn't like. It definitely retreads some old ground with this one, which it's not really that big of a criticism, but when you look at how different like A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back are, how much different they are from each other, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like a little bit of a, okay, well, how come this one is taking like bits and pieces from both movies here instead of like being completely original like how Empire was to New Hope here,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you got like a new Death Star, and you also got a family plot twist that Empire made famous.
Right.
But and I think your opinion on Ewoks is either going to make or break this movie. If you like Ewoks, you'll enjoy this movie. If you don't like Ewoks, you'll hate this movie. And I think that's a little bit of a problem in terms of like story building or storytelling. Like having like these things be like such a central part of like the movie here, to the point where it's like you can make it or break it, as opposed to like just having like Luke, Leia, or Han being like the make or break it portion of the movie.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's kind of like Jar Jar in the Phantom Menace.
Exactly, yeah. And the movie has like a couple of tones that it kind of juggles here. So I mean, you have like the weirdness and the world building with like the Jabba Palace story arc, and
Mm-hmm.
the Sarlacc pit and all that stuff. You have like a kid friendly tone with like the Ewoks, and then you have like kind of like the meat and potatoes of the movie, which is like the kind of philosophy and the ethics of like the Sith and the Jedi, when like they're talking with the Emperor and all that. And I think like my other criticism just on this rewatch, it does feel like the Rebels win a little easy in this one. Like after like
Yeah.
after like everything, I mean, you look at like kind of like the Death Star trench run in A New Hope, and it's like you got guys dying like left and right. Like Luke's like really the only one left to like actually do anything about it.
Yeah.
This this one kind of felt like a little less significant in this go around, but that's just what it is.
Yeah. And I kind of agree with you with that. And the Death Star, it was, to me, was a letdown too. I was just like, again, like,
Yeah,
and they give the prequel movie, or not the prequel, the sequel movies, a bad rap for doing that almost every movie. But they didn't
yeah,
do it in the
no,
second movie like they did for I guess Empire didn't have a Death Star,
no, I
but
didn't.
they
No,
had
and I
Star
mean,
Killer yeah.
yeah, Star Killer base, and then even like in Rise of Skywalker, they pretty much had like essentially the Death Star, just only in the form of like the Star Destroyer
Oh, it was like a
fleet.
bunch of Death Stars. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And I mean, here's the thing: is like, I mean, I get from like, let's say, like kind of more of like a practical perspective or standpoint, why you would want to make more Death Stars. Essentially, they are the nuke in
Yeah.
the Star Wars universe here. And it's like you have the most nukes, you're going to be doing pretty well for yourself here,
Yep.
But that being said, I do feel like yes, it does boil down to kind of more lazy storytelling and just recycling things. And sure, the Death Star is synonymous with Star Wars. It's very iconic and whatnot, but it doesn't have to be. You can have it. You can take a break from it every once in a while, or just completely altogether.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah,
Let's talk about kind of our what the heck moments slash commentary slash other of the movie.
sure. So
Um,
yeah, I
yeah,
mean, first thing I got on here, Jabba's palace is puppet central.
it's
Like,
Jim Henson had a play date with
oh,
Lucasfilm, and they just went crazy.
and even like there's even like some like not great puppets in the background. Like I literally, I'm really gonna call out to a very obscure like 2 second part of this movie, but
Do it.
there's like a one
Do it.
scene, yeah, there's a one scene where So you know when like Jabba is talking to Leia when they're bartering on like the price for Chewbacca,
Yeah.
and then like she turns off the thermal detonator, and you know everybody's happy that they're not going to get blown up here, and
Hmm.
the music starts playing again.
Yep.
So like right in the background, one of the musicians playing the music is just legitimately just a blob of flesh. Like that's all he is.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. I think I know what you're
like
talking about.
I backed it up like just for a second, but yeah, there's just a blob of flesh playing like the saxophone, and it's just I don't know. It's just funny.
Yeah. No, yeah. So yeah, I like Luke's entrance is super cool. I mean, it's pretty baller, like we were saying earlier.
Yeah, very 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 cool, very baller. Now, one thing I did notice in this movie. So like Luke introduces himself as Jedi Knight, like right from the get go here.
Yeah, that
It's
was
like,
interesting.
and
Even though
as far
Yoda
as
said he wasn't.
right, exactly. And as far as I know, he hasn't gone back and done his training. So I was like, all right, well, we going to do the self promotion thing now here, All right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like that Luke's. Yeah, like we said earlier, Luke's kind of the one driving this whole thing. He's got the plan.
Hmm.
Great showcase of his powers in this movie.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, let's talk about that plan to bust out Han Solo because I feel like it's a pretty complicated plan here. if
for
we
the
if we if we really take the time to like dissect it and think about it,
yeah.
because so it starts out with him you know essentially putting people undercover at Jabba's palace. You got
Hmm.
Leia, you got Chewie, you got Lando, and you also have C3PO and R2D2, right?
Yeah.
And and at first he's gonna like just he's basically just being diplomatic, saying like, hey, we can work something out, man. We can just do this whole thing. And obviously that doesn't work, so Leia comes in and basically tries to like make a break for it with Han, and that doesn't work. So then Luke shows up, decides to be confrontational with Jabba, goes in without a lightsaber like on his hip to like fight him right there in the palace here.
I could have saved some time.
That could have saved some time. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have to make the Rancor man cry and all that for killing his pet.
I know. I felt bad for him.
Dude, like I don't get what it is, but like ever since I was a kid, and even now, I always feel bad for that guy. I just don't understand.
Well, it was
But
like his like buddy. Like
yeah,
that was his pet.
well, how do you become? How are you buddies with a Rancor
How are you
here?
buddies with a tiger?
Watch Tiger King.
I know. That's what I'm saying though. It's like he might be like a tiger of that world or that area. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, except like 50 feet taller or something, but I don't know.
I don't know.
But anyhow,
Some other
yeah.
things I thought were interesting were when Han uses the Force to shoot the Sarlacc.
Okay, well,
Like he can't see, so he just like literally just points and shoots and hits the Sarlacc tentacle thing that's coming out.
yeah.
I was
I
like, wait
mean,
a second.
I know Obi-Wan said um like in his experience there is no such thing as luck in the first
Right.
movie here. However, Obi-Wan is a chronic liar, so I'm not
Big
entirely sure how
time.
much of
Which
we
that's
will get
another
it.
yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
that's another point of contention this movie.
Yeah.
He just tried to
But
justify all his
but
lying.
but no, I think Han just got lucky with that. I mean, he even says it's like it's all right. I can see a lot better right now here.
Yeah.
Like
I
I don't
guess he
know.
does justify it,
Maybe
but
his vision was kind of like just progressively coming back to him, like during that fight here. I don't know.
yeah. Another thing is Yoda's death is a little heavier with the backstory of the prequels. I feel like that is a good thing that happens, I think.
Yeah. Well, it also I really liked how like the prequels actually did build on like what he said in this movie about like the Emperor and all that. Like you have to be careful of the Emperor. The Emperor is not to be trifled with. And it puts it a lot more in perspective, just knowing that, okay, they had that duel, they had so much interaction with each other, like in the past here, and we actually got to see that play out now. So yeah, no, it's kind of I think that's how you do like the prequel treatment right here, is you just really just kind of build off of like maybe vague comments or stories from like what you're basing it off of here.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the whole "a certain point of view" quote from Obi-Wan, I'm like,
My gosh,
"Wait, for real? You're gonna use that to justify,
like,
that's not helping you, bro. That's not
well,
helping you."
it's like yeah, when he says like I forget exactly how the line goes, but I'm gonna
It was yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, go ahead and paraphrase it.
yeah, I'm gonna paraphrase it the best I can, but he says like, like I think he said something along the lines that anything can be true from a certain point of view. I'm like, okay, then what? then, then like, okay, so then like, so 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 then from my point of view, the Jedi are evil is a totally valid argument. Then like,
Yes.
because you sure didn't feel about it that way in
No.
episode 3.
Yeah. I think he was talking about how he technically wasn't lying when telling him about his dad because technically, from a certain point of view,
Yeah.
Anakin did die the day he became Darth Vader, which
No.
that makes sense. If like I know he was saying that, but I'm like, that's a really like
Yeah.
roundabout way of trying to cover your tracks when Luke's already found you out.
No, absolutely. And so I mean, it's a no, I mean, and no, obviously, yes, that is what he is referring to, but like his logic and like his like ethics on like explaining that that rationale here, it's like, okay, that's kind of some dangerous like territory you're flirting with there, Obi-Wan. And I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know, it would, I guess it just would have made more sense if it was like, why did I keep it a secret from you? Just because I didn't want you to fall to the dark side. I didn't want you to become, you
That would have been a
know.
lot better explanation for sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, it would. I mean, granted, yeah, it would have been kind of more. It would have been definitely more of an honest explanation, but
Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
But oh well. Uh,
Yeah, go ahead.
so, one thing I did notice on this rewatch is everybody is getting promoted in this movie. So
Yeah.
like Han
On to
and Lando
general.
are just generals here, like
Oh,
no
no,
military experience really all that much here. No,
you
no,
don't need to be.
like don't command a whole bunch of troops really, or like have like a whole bunch of like wartime battle experience. But it's just like, yeah, no, you're generals. It's all good.
That's
And
all
then
good.
obviously, like we discussed earlier, uh, Luke self promotes himself to Jedi Knight, at least at the beginning of the movie, only for Yoda to say, "Yeah, not really," but uh,
Yeah.
but
You're not, kid, you're not, but it's
well, I
okay.
mean, but the guy that got the biggest promotion out of this whole movie is C-3PO. He basically ascended to godhood.
He went Super Saiyan God in this movie.
He sure did. It's just like, and on that note, so C-3PO legitimately gets admired as a god by the Ewoks in this movie, and is literally like so useless to do anything to like actually help his friends in that scene where they're about to get cooked alive here.
Yeah.
Like he's like, "Oh, I guess they're cooking you alive." And it takes like Luke and Leia telling C3PO, "Hey, you actually gotta actually try to talk him out of this." And he's like, "Okay, well, I guess I'll try here. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just kind of C3PO is just a bad friend.
Yep. No, I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that. I mean, so for what that storyline's worth, I thought that was kind of funny that he was a god.
No,
But
it is funny, and like you definitely see the comedic effect just because he is the most useless member out of like all the main cast here, or the original cast here, and yet like he has this one moment to actually be of use to them, and kind of fumbles it like out the gate for the most part.
yeah, no, I agree. I think that I mean, it kept the. I don't know. It helped them to befriend the Ewoks, which that was about it. Like that, there wasn't any other reason for it. But
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. Yeah.
talk about them a second. The speeder bikes are cool. I think that was
No,
a cool
speeder bikes are
inclusion.
very cool. Yeah.
Ewoks are cute locals.
Yeah.
Um, and then I remember, I can't remember if it's in a documentary or something I read somewhere, but the Ewoks were originally supposed to be Wookiees,
Yeah.
but they didn't have the budget for tall people. I guess
Which
that much fabric.
that much fur here, but I kind of I don't know, maybe it's just because it's a different time, but I kind of find that a little hard to believe to a certain extent, but it might be just because I'm going in with the mentality of like how movies are made these days, because obviously Star Wars was like, you know, like huge back then, as
Right.
just as it is right now. It's like, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like if a studio, like if Marvel wanted to uh do something like, big for Endgame, or like something that required a lot of money, there's not a bank in the world that wouldn't write them a blank check here,
Oh
because
yeah.
they know they're going to get the return on investment and then some.
No, I agree with you on that. They are tribal teddy bears. That's what my wife says, at least.
I mean, that is accurate.
And they're arguably the cutest in all of Star Wars until Baby Yoda.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Um, and the treehouse has really reminded me of like the Lost Boys kind of Peter Pan / Hook kind
Yeah.
of feel.
Well,
And when the Ewoks are fighting, I just wanted to yell "Bangarang!"
dude, like every time, like that scene starts where, like, they're starting to fight the stormtroopers, and then they blast like the war horns, like
Yeah,
when they're up in the trees. I just remember, like, every time as a kid I'm like, murder, let's go. Like
yeah,
that part got me so pumped up as a kid.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. But no, I mean, kind of continuing on the whole Wookiee and Ewok comparison. Yeah, I mean, the tree houses, I mean, like, they do remind me of like what I played in Knights of the Old Republic, where it, like, most of the Wookiees, like, they live out the in like the high treetops in Kashyyyk, and then
Mm,
they have, like, kind of a dangerous area down below and all that. But yeah, no, I think that's kind of just an interesting thing.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah. But speaking on those Ewoks, so the Empire
Hmm.
gets defeated by teddy bears. It's not a good look.
No,
No.
not at
And
all.
I mean, this fight really shows you how worthless stormtrooper armor is. If you can get taken out by a stick and a rock,
I
you're
mean,
not
some of
doing
the
well.
rocks are pretty big though, and if you're wearing a helmet, it doesn't matter. You're gonna probably die
Sure, but
and
I'm
get hit.
talking like like the majority of like what they're using, like, so like they're sharp rocks on the end of their spears, and then also like the slings that they have that they're throwing at them and all that with the
Yeah,
rocks. It's just like, okay, come on.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
but
it's laughable for sure, but
and I'm
guerrilla
gonna
warfare.
get
It's guerrilla warfare.
it's guerrilla warfare, exactly. But I'm gonna get dark here for a second and ask,
Okay.
like, a real question. Did the Ewoks eat the dead stormtroopers? Because they got their helmets and they're,
Oh,
playing
yeah, playing
playing
drums.
drums on them,
They were
and
gonna they were gonna eat Han and Luke.
exactly. That's my line of thinking. Is like, okay, so apparently they're down with, like, eating people. So why not all these guys
Well,
here?
to them, it's another animal, right? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
so, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think they did.
Probably. Yeah. So
Um, I'm gonna clean this up real quick. Something in my notes that I didn't delete. I think it's cool. Obviously, Lucasfilm came out not too long ago, said that the man. So there's that scene where uh, they trick the guards of the base they're trying to get into, and there's a bunch of rebels waiting for him, and one of them happens to be Rex from Clone Wars,
oh, is
the guy
that
with the
okay.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
No, I did not know that.
They confirmed that. So that's cool. Rex is in it. I'm sure the guy playing him did not know that that would be him, but
Oh, I don't
yeah.
think anybody knew
No,
until,
I mean,
like,
I think
yeah,
it was just something that someone at Lucasfilm was like, he looks enough like him. We're gonna base this
we're gonna make him
futuristic
canon.
one. Well, because
Yeah.
he's in Rebels, and he kind of
Yeah.
looks like. So I'm like, oh, maybe after seeing that, like, hey, let's make him this guy. That would be a cool tie-in, and which it is.
Yeah. Which, I mean, Marvel recently did that with like Spider-Man and like Iron Man 2. Did you hear that?
What? Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
That
there's like one part in Iron Man 2 where like there's a kid wearing an Iron Man mask and he's like, raising his hand to like, blast him with like or blast one of the drones in that movie with like his Iron Man repulsor glove toy or something. And Iron Man comes in, saves him and all that and says, "Nice work, kid." And basically Marvel said like, "Oh yeah, no, that's actually Spider-Man in there." I'm like, "No, it's not." Like,
yeah,
don't stop pulling things out of your butt on that. My
yeah.
gosh.
I mean, it definitely makes it cooler. Like,
I mean,
obviously, it
yes.
wasn't. They didn't have the rights to Spider-Man.
Oh no, of course not. But yes, it does make it cooler. But it's like one of those things where it's like you're just reaching super hard right there here. But whatever.
I know. Obviously, it shows Palpatine's kind of genius intellect when it comes to like uh, manipulating, pulling strings in the background.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
most definitely. Yeah, and you know, so Sidious Sidious sorry, Palpatine, I can't speak today. Um Apparently he has like a young apprentice fetish here just
oh
because
yeah,
he's always wanting a young apprentice. He had Dooku, just some sad old man, and then
yep,
he's like, okay, well, I
that.
guess we'll, I guess I'll just go out and get the new model of apprentice here. Younger, sleeker, got more horsepower, and then now that Vader's all kind of crisped up and burned and all that, he's like, all right, well, we'll get the next model then here. This one's run its course.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's how it happens.
Yeah, I mean that's how he does things here apparently.
Something I thought that was cool is Wedge is now Red Leader, Wedge
Yeah,
Antilles.
yeah,
Um,
no, which is also I think kind of like I mean indirect callback because Obi-Wan was Red Leader in Attack of the Clones, which Ian McGregor is Wedge's nephew in real life.
oh, for real?
Yeah, for real.
Funny.
Yeah,
That's cool. I like that.
yeah.
We get the classic "It's a Trap" meme from
Oh
this
yeah,
movie. Um, it's a trap from Admiral Akbar. And then something I thought was interesting was when Luke's in the throne room with Palpatine and Vader, he just throws his lightsaber away. I was like,
yeah,
okay, idiot. That
yeah.
seems like the right thing.
I mean, yeah, not obviously like not the best combat strategy in all honesty. But I mean, I get why it's like, kind of dramatic effect of like him saying, I'm not going to play your games. I'm not going to do what you want me to do type thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's I don't know. I wouldn't have done that, but I'm not a Jedi yet.
exactly.
Um, so let's talk about how the rewatch order kind of affected our opinions of this movie.
Yeah. So obviously we kind of went with a little bit of an unorthodox way of rewatching these movies. And mostly, I think if you've been listening along with us as we record these, we kind of explained that it's to really get into the idea of like, okay, we find out Vader is Anakin Skywalker. We're going to go back and see who Anakin Skywalker was and what brought him to the point to become Vader. And in all honesty, I think the rewatch kind of did hamper my opinion a little bit in terms of like watching it in that order because like I mentioned in our Revenge of the Sith episode on this, the prequels really show Anakin to really only be acting out of his self interest here.
Yeah,
He's not utilitarian. He's not classic hero. Anything that he really does that resembles that is by and large lip service to the Jedi Order, and you know,
pretty much. Yeah,
yeah, and it 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 really shows the gap between Hayden Christensen and James Earl Jones here because just like the personality, how they handle things, how they feel about things, I feel like is a very two very different people in terms of like how it's done.
true.
Now, obviously, yes, there is like, about 17 years that happens between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope here, but it's kind of weird that we really didn't start to see like, you know, that Darth Vader really manifests like the one that we see in the original trilogy type thing.
Yeah, I
I'm
agree. Yeah. Um.
and
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna add like so. Here's the thing: if like let's say, uh, Hayden Christensen and his portrayal of Anakin Skywalker, if that like let's say like that wasn't for Anakin Skywalker, but if that was like say for like an origin story for like Kylo Ren or something like that, I would have bought that so much more just because it makes a lot more sense in terms of like the starting point and the finishing point.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Just the kind of whininess of it and like the unsure,
Yeah.
like
And just having
feel.
like, just childish tantrums and stuff like that. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I think I'm kind of unsure like what this did for me. I think it actually does a lot for the character of Vader personally.
Okay.
Um, like think about it in terms of before these movies came out, before 1, 2, and 3 came out, all we had were
Mhm.
the original trilogy. I think it adds so much to the backstory of Vader
I
and
mean, no, it definitely does here. It's
helps you to
just,
understand why he goes to the light at the end of the movie more.
mhm.
It's an action downgrade for sure. There's a philosophy change,
Yes,
um,
there is. Yeah. I mean,
and then it adds like backstory to Yoda. Like we get that, and so I liked watching the prequels before that. And then
yeah.
I just felt like the second Death Star was lame. That's kind of how it has affected my opinion. I
Yeah.
think.
No, no, it most certainly is here. I mean, it's just like, it's just kind of just doing the same thing, just once again here. But yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about our final thoughts and wrap this bad boy up.
All right, sounds good. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of hard to judge this movie just because I grew up with it. So it's hard to be objective. But if I have to be objective with it, um, if I s- if I saw this movie for the first time as an adult, I would have probably been let down. I feel like, in all honesty,
Yeah, yeah,
just given like uh how good the quality of the first two movies were. I still enjoy it, but yeah, it's not on the level of the first two movies. It's really hard to stick, a landing. Yeah, stick the landing for like a conclusion to like a story, and Star Wars is no exception. I would say this is in the good, not great tier of Star Wars movies, and I would probably rank this as either my fourth or my fifth in terms of where it, where it lands on the Skywalker saga.
yeah. I think that that's a good spot for it. But
Yeah.
yeah, for me, it was a good Star Wars movie, not great. I don't know if this will be in my top 5 after this is all said and done.
So real quick, what movies would be competing for the fourth spot or fourth and fifth
Uh,
spot?
Probably Force Awakens. I would say might be competing for the 4th spot.
Okay, and
Um,
then and what about the fifth spot?
I don't know. I think that um, uh, man, I don't know. I'll have to rewatch episode 7 or not
Yeah,
episode 7, but 8, 7, 8, 9, obviously, just to
yeah,
kind of see. I think it probably is still top 5, but I don't know. Like it just didn't do it for me this movie, and so um, yeah, it was hard to wrap up the series. I think, but they just kind of reused a lot of the same material. It felt like.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's still a good Star Wars movie. It's just not great.
yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, again, it's it's just super hard. I mean, we've seen it like happen quite a few times here where, you know, a series, movie, TV show, whatever, they just don't stick the landing when it comes to the ending, and everything's been amazing up to that point. Like, for example, Game of Thrones, or, like any of the X-Men like trilogy arcs that they've done here, it's just it's
Yeah,
it's tricky.
it's really tricky, and I don't. I think they had a lot in front of them, and I mean, people loved this franchise when it first came out, and so they're like, I mean, there's probably a lot of pressure on that, you know.
Oh, I'm no, there most certainly is here, and I think it's just I think, yeah, well, and even like with the original trilogy, I don't think Lucas completely had everything planned out. I think he had some ideas, and we kind of talked about how they originally wanted to do Wookiees instead of Ewoks. They originally were going to have like a different character be the other one
Right.
in this, but that didn't happen. So I definitely think that they've had like they kind of had like the same type of issues that I think this most recent Star Wars trilogy had, where they just kind of are flying by the seat of their pants a little bit here, but it is what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's it for our Thursday throwback, Return of the Jedi. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. You can check us out on all our social medias. Check us out on Patreon. Have an awesome week. Remember, everyone's a nerd about something.